Hello, Venters, how are you? If you're new to the show, hit subscribe and take a walk with me. I like to walk every single day. It helps me get my head straight, helps me get a little physical activity, and it's one of those things I actually enjoy enough to call my hobby. A lot of walkers don't necessarily do that, but they should. It's fun. Guys, today I was watching a video on YouTube from CNN, and it was Michael Smerconish. He was interviewing Arthur Kaplan from the New York School of Medicine, and NYU School of Medicine, excuse me. And they were talking about IVF patients and how nowadays there's been a new software, new breakthrough, if you will, from a company called Nucleus Genomics. It's giving IVF patients the ability to select various traits that they want their children to have. And you might think, well, what's the big deal if somebody wants their kids to have blonde hair and blue eyes rather than blonde hair and brown eyes? You know, what's the big thing? What's it gonna hurt? And it doesn't necessarily hurt somebody, but people will have the ability to choose if they want to get a tall gene so their son or daughter is taller than normal, if they want to have blue eyes or brown. Eventually, I assume if you pay the right money, they can make sure that the child has the athletic ability of a Usain Bolt. You know, there's a lot of things that people with money could do with this newfound ability. Now, in case you're thinking, well, what's the big problem? So rich people get to pick the best sets of genes for their offspring. What's it matter? Well, it matters so much that the International Society for Cell and Gene Therapy, along with several other science-based organizations, guys, they're actually calling for a 10-year ban on human genetic editing. You see, here's the crazy thing. Some of the people that are alive in this world today have insomnia. Some of you guys suffer from insomnia. Well, some people that suffer from insomnia actually have really good creativity. As a matter of fact, sometimes when you can't sleep, you'll have that eureka moment and come up with something that you might not normally have come up with. And I'm obviously talking about an idea. Apparently, there's quite a few celebrities that have complained about insomnia. Wouldn't that be crazy if we could actually cure insomnia? And by doing that, we might actually lose the ability for certain people to use their creative skills that they actually use when they're having trouble falling asleep. God, this is where I really feel like I let my viewers down, because I hear these interesting stories and I want to spit it out to you in very similar ways that they did. And sometimes it just doesn't work out well. But imagine if my mom could have taken out my genes and given me the gift of gab. I always thought I had the gift of gab. The only problem is, as I've gotten into my 40s and pushing into my 50s, I feel like my whole ability to speak is slowly but surely becoming shit. But what about the dark side of this? Right now, there's a lot of people that make up the LGBTQ community that, for whatever reason, a lot of times they fall on the pro-choice or even pro-abortion side of things when it comes to pro-life or pro-choice, right, issues. We know this is true. It's not that none of them are pro-life, but a lot of them tend to be on the left side of things, which are predominantly pro-choice or pro-abortion. How many of them would change their stance immediately if all of a sudden this was a way where you could isolate gay or LGBTQ type genes and traits and then eliminate them? Because one thing Michael Smerconish and Arthur Kaplan were talking about was this isn't just a way to select traits that are ideal, it's also a way where you can discard traits that you don't see as ideal. So every time I've heard about the gay person's brain compared to the straight person's brain, they always make it sound like they are indistinguishable and you can't tell the difference. But what if in the future that could be determined? And what would happen if all of a sudden 99% of future gay human beings were never actually birthed? Do you think we would have a switch where all of a sudden people in the LGBTQ community would start being pro-life. Isn't that crazy? Now, some people might think, Jesse, that's so stupid. But guys, what would you do if you were a gay person and you wanted people to be able to be pro-choice or pro-abortion, however you want to say it? But then what if it literally wiped out your numbers to the point where there was nobody being born that was part of the LGBTQ community? I think that would make a lot of people that consider themselves pro-choice now, I think that would make it where at least a percentage of them would end up being pro-lifers. It's kind of amazing if you think about it. By the way, the doctor, Arthur Kaplan, brought up the idea of, hey, when you tell somebody you want to cure insomnia for the population, that sounds like a really noble thing. But how many world-class ideas happen because somebody's suffering from insomnia? I would have never thought of that either. What a great example, right? That's the same thing with everything. What if somebody has restless leg syndrome? Well, that restless leg syndrome might make it where you have to stay up for hour on hour as well. What do? You say, heck, I've got some work to do. Since I can't fall asleep, I'm going to do my work. And all of a sudden, you become one of these proactive employees that rises through the ranks, and never once did you give credit to your restless leg syndrome that they're going to eliminate in the next year. I wish that they would eliminate certain ailments. If they could find a way to get rid of all cancers, that would be wonderful. If they could eliminate most baldness, I think even bald men would agree that you can still shave your head, It would be nice to have that option. Prisoner 000 says, natural selection has brought us this far. We should accept with compassion the good and bad it gives to us. People should stop worshiping perfection as the only thing deserving of having a right to life. Here's the crazy thing, guys. If we're going to move into a future where AI is the dominant being and we're just its slave, why do we need to have perfect genes? Visible to us says genetic optimization equals eugenics. And again, imagine in the future, there are no overweight kids because everybody's built like an Olympic sprinter. I mean, I don't know about you, but if every single one of us looked the same, that sounds like a scary future. That doesn't sound like an exciting future. One of the things that we grew up with was that our parents instilled in us, and it might be BS, but it was still nice to hear, is that you could grow up and fall in love with whoever you wanted to in this world. Well, if we get rid of all the nerds and get rid of all the overweight people and get rid of all the people with brown eyes or blue eyes, well, then all of a sudden, we're being forced into a future where you're going to be marrying a cookie cutter type human being. And what if it only goes for the rich? All of a sudden, the rich become the best athletes, the smartest people. They have the best AI because they have the most money. I mean, that doesn't sound like a future worth living. No wonder they're all purchasing bunkers to hide from us. Dusty Lynn 6891 says, this is a hard no for me. The consequences of this could be horrific. Dusty Lynn, here's the thing. They're already doing it. For all we know, this might be why certain kids, you ever see these kids and their parents look completely nerdy and goofy, but they are like the fastest person in the state, or they're this freak athlete, and you think to yourself, I wonder if the mom cheated on the dad, but it's not. That's really their kid. What if they did some sort of weird tests on them in some way, shape, or form, and all of a sudden you've got these kids that have superhuman traits? I know that sounds weird, but isn't that how it would happen? Wouldn't they do some testing of it first? And wouldn't we not know about the testing till afterwards? And my God, could you imagine going up to a billionaire and saying, hey, your firstborn son that you haven't even put in the womb of your wife yet, when he is in the womb, we could inject him with these different traits so that he can literally grow up to be like a professional athlete or a professional, scientist or something. God, that would be really difficult for a person that has the financial means not to want to take advantage of. Best Sam 2009ify says, another terrifying possibility is this could also be used in the opposite direction for nefarious reasons. Imagine picking traits to make people strong, but also dumb at the same time to create an army that's easy to control. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure book. The future is either going to have humans that have superhuman traits, or it's going to be humans that are infused with artificial intelligence, kind of like a half bio, half mechanical type situation, kind of like Will Smith's character in I, Robot, right? Because if you guys remember, he was like half robot in that movie. I thought that was a damn good movie. I think that's what the future is going to be, because otherwise you might as well have everybody be stupid if we're going to let artificial intelligence make all the decisions in the future anyway. It sounds kind of like no matter what path we go down, it's going to really be horrible. Like, I don't see any good path here. That's what's so creepy about this. One of them, AI, is going to happen in the next year or two where 50% of us lose our jobs. How are we going to be able to assimilate into the other jobs and make enough money to survive? Will UBI be implemented quick enough? Because what if everybody's unemployed and homeless and it takes the government 7 or 8 years to do UBI, because it takes the government 7 or 8 years to implement a lot of stuff? And I'm exaggerating there, but I'm just saying, when you need money today, you don't want to be given a promise that you'll get it sometime in the future. Bugatti Flo says, but can it cure gayness? So imagine you've got some egomaniac billionaire, and what he's thinking is, I don't want a kid that has LGBTQ genes. I don't want a kid that has autism. I don't want a kid that's bipolar or has any mental illness. So I'm going to pay the money and we're going to eliminate that from our family's gene pool. Well, if that's the situation, then like I said earlier, I would like to see how people that are pro-choice now, I would like to know how they would feel if the future is one where all the LGBTQ kids were not given a chance to live. This time of year is really weird for me because it goes from being uncomfortable hot, like 103, 104, to all of a sudden it's just one of these hots where it doesn't leave. So even at midnight, it's like, 100 degrees outside, and it's kind of miserable after a while. With that being said, even though it's hot, I would still rather take my walk than ditch it. And that's why my plea to you guys is, make sure you walk no matter what the weather is, because there might be a day in the future where you want to walk, but you won't physically be able to. So what we have to do is we have to fight that reality together, venters. And the best way we can do that is to get moving. Here's another scary story that I heard. This story was from Sky News, and their reporter Yusra El-Bashir went to Western Africa, to the area of Sierra Leone. Guys, they have a cannabis look-alike drug problem out there, and they call it Kush. And no, it's not the Kush that you grew up with back in the day. For some reason, they've called it Kush out there in Sierra Leone. And guys, this is a drug that is 25 times more powerful and more addictive than fentanyl. And kids as young as 10, 11, 12 years old are actually getting addicted to this drug. And it has like a zombie effect where they are literally wasted for like 10, 12 hours at a time. It also, just like fentanyl does here, it's causing people to get those sores. And so people have kind of compared it to the drug known as Trank. Trank many times is mixed with the fentanyl, and that's why you'll see people with these horrific sores that end up getting infested with infection, and they end up in some cases having to lose a limb. And this is really hitting the people of Sierra Leone hard. Yvonne Terry says, this sounds like the Africa version of the crack epidemic that was in the US in the 80s and 90s. I don't remember anybody suffering from crack having huge sores on their legs. And these sores look like something that are just designed to get you in your casket as fast as possible. Are You Sick of It says, this sounds very much like the tranq drug in the US, causing the same type of horrific problems. It totally does. Carl Nicodemus 2993 says, who are the demon adults that are giving this to 10, 11, and 12-year-olds? God, some people have no shame. If you knew that you gave a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy or girl this drug and they got addicted and ended up passing away, I don't know how you could sleep. I don't know how you could live with yourself. But that's the problem nowadays. We're losing our ability to feel and to empathize with other people. And it's just really, really disappointing. I would love to know your thoughts. Do you think if we could change people's traits, do you think that's a good thing? Or do you think we're kind of messing with Frankenstein's monster and it could be very bad? Me, myself, I'm kind of a fan with going with what God gave you. And sometimes that involves somebody that might have a disability or an ailment or a disease. And I think that the reason God put us on the planet was that we could be the team that can kind of come up with cures for these diseases and stuff down the road without eliminating them altogether in this way, if that makes sense. Anyway, with that being said, make sure you take a good walk, drink some water, stay hydrated in this heat, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.